Alright, Diablo players, brand new Season 10's PTR's class balance update. I know I recently put up a video, that one was actually an older one. We have an updated, brand new change for the class balances. So let's go ahead and go over these, starting right off with the Barbarian. Keep in mind this is from PTR, so things are subject to change, but this is what it's looking like right now. So starters with the Barbarian, we have the Unbridled Rage. This is the, I believe, key passive. That just gives you increased damage. They increased it by 5%. I feel like it's a small one, but hey, that's pretty good. And it is also double against injured enemies. So again, remember, even if you only increase it by like, 5x, it's like 10x. It's like, it's small, but it does have this other multiplier here. Now with Unconstrained over here, we have the Berserking's damage bonus to 60. It used to have while below 65% life, you would become Berserking, but now it's while you're not healthy, which is, I believe, like 80% is the number. Does it say if you mouse over it? Okay. But yeah, it's when you're basically not at like full HP, but it used to be below 65. So it's much easier in terms of conditions. So this is overall, I would say, a buff. And then with Walking Arsenal, while all of the bonuses are activated, you used to get crowd control duration, but now it says unstoppable and attack speed. And I believe it used to give you this already, so it's just you don't get crowd control duration, which sometimes it can be better for like staggering the bosses, but overall unstoppable is quite nice for a buff. Now Druid is unfortunately taking some nerfs here. So with Bad Omen, we have like certain things are getting more tags, which is good for certain things that can be easier for people to understand, but this just has like a Lightning Bolt, I believe, as the tag here. And then Grizzly Rage is actually taking a nerf. So you used to gain 60x damage bonus, and now it is going to 40. So it's a pretty big loss over there. And then the damage bonus gets increased. It used to be 4%, but now it's 1%, while in this farm up to a maximum of 25. So you lose 75x on top of losing 20x. So that's a pretty big number. So massive nerfs to the Pulverized Splash Druid. And then we have the Lightning Storm over here, which is going to actually get... Wait, what? They're nerfing this? I didn't even think Lightning Druid was super popular anyways, but looks like they are nerfing it. And more than likely, guys, it's because all of the brand new Chaos Uniques will allow you to make the numbers go 20% more. So if you're getting like 20x damage there, but then losing like, what is this, 11x? It's a really random number. They're going to 65, okay. But you lose some here and you gain some in other spots. Most of these are probably overall going to be buffs at the higher end of the things once you get like good stuff. Then we have Perfect Storm over here where it says the storm skills would deal up to 80x damage and damaging invulnerable, immobilized, or slowed enemies. With storm skills grants 2 spirit over here. So I guess that is the change over here. Maybe it's just like a wording. Some of these are just wording changes. And then we have Shred over here. So Shred is getting some pretty big buffs. So if you're a Shred Enjoyer, I mean, it's basically double damage. 52 to 100, second attack dealing 150, and then the third attack is 300%. But I don't believe that there is a way for Druid to every attack becomes a third attack like you can with Spiritborn. But let me know if there's any ways to only attack with a third attack on Shred. This would be pretty big. I mean, 300%. Basically, it's just double DPS on Shred. Then we have Stone Burst, which is the ability gives you 10% more damage over there, so that's cool. Then Tornado conjures a swirling tornado for 4 seconds that deals 35% damage instead of 60. Okay, so that's a pretty big surprise. I was unaware of Tornado being too strong, and then Toxic Claws gets the werewolf tag, I guess. And then Necromancer over here, so Blight. So Blight got an increase from 135 to 160 corrupting damage, and then we have Bloodlance getting a nice little buff over here by 30x damage, or 30%, and then Blood Surge getting a 10%. I don't know if any of these are going to be like super strong. I mean, people use Blight in every single build because it's a multiplier. And then Bone Storm, so it's 350% damage to surrounding enemies over 10 seconds, and then Coalesced Blood, I guess, gains... Oh, it's just coalesced and just removes the word blood. I don't know. Maybe it's a tag thing. Anyways, because these are data mined, so sometimes it's just an update to the text in the game. Sever over here taking a nerf over here, losing out on 10% damage, and then it swings again. Instead of 45, you get 20, so that's a nerf over there. Now, Rogue, okay. So Aftermath is actually getting a buff, which is great because this way you don't need to get those pants with like a higher roll on the plus ranks to Aftermath if you are interested in playing the Death Trap Rogue. So that's a little bit of a buff over there. Barrage. Okay, this is so small. Like, I just want to give Blizzard some feedback because hopefully they can see this and see that it's probably not enough. Like a skill that is F tier, buffing it, you know, even double sometimes isn't enough. But 3%, I could tell you for sure that the players should not get super excited about this unless there's something that I'm unaware of, that Barrage has some new interaction with some new chaos powers. I'm not sure why we're getting a 3% update over here on that skill. And then exposure, I guess it used to have the grenade tag, no longer has it or something. Then Flurry getting a nerf here. Now, this is really a big surprise because Flurry wasn't even like top tier, and them nerfing it is, again, they're getting buffs in other areas because you can put the helmet in other slots. But to make Flurry nerfed, they could have just left it alone. There's just like no need. It wasn't even... Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a big surprise by me. Penshot, giving it an additional... 15% is nothing. These changes here genuinely do not make sense here. Why are they nerfing like the rogue stuff? And then rapid fire gets buffed. I mean, it's again so small it probably doesn't matter. Twisting Blades is actually taking a massive nerf here, but it gets a buff in the aspect department. So Twisting Blades, instead of dealing 70% damage, is now 30. And then instead of it doing 112, it's now 70. Even though these are pretty massive nerfs, right? Like going from 70 to 30%, that's pretty big. But keep in mind, there is some other massive buffs where I believe they like doubled it. So it looks like what they're doing is they're moving certain areas of like damage multipliers versus on the base of the item. So without the aspect, basically a lot of builds may do a lot less damage in this next upcoming season. Then with Ball Lightning Sorc, we have a nerf on Ball Lightning. So losing out on like 50% of its like original like stats. So 30% going down to 20. That's a pretty big nerf over there. Then Blizzard over here getting a buff, but Blizzard doesn't really do damage anyways. Most people that know Blizzard, it's basically an ice spike build. So buffing this does not really do anything as far as I'm aware of. Then Charge Bolts over here getting another nerf. Okay. Whoa. Okay, hold up. Fireball was already pretty good. Okay. If you guys haven't seen my Fireball build, lock it in. It was already insanely good. Like, okay, this is just a big surprise to me. They just want Fireball to be like, why are they nerfing Ice Shards? Like, Fireball was miles ahead of like a lot of these. Anyways, Frozen Orb getting a small damage and increase. It was already pretty far behind. I'm gonna be real with you guys on this one. This is probably not gonna really do too much to the scale, but the Fireball, I mean, it was already good. Now it's even better. Glass Cannon, it used to have, I guess, the defensive tag. That doesn't even make any sense. They just removed the defensive tag. Anyways, Ice Shards launching, it just... You lose out on some damage over here. Again, it's probably because of some of the movement. Because remember, you can get the Hail of Verglass now in your boots, and then you get more damage. But again, the Fireball buff is like so big because remember, you don't even have to play the two-handed staff anymore. You can just throw that on a pair of boots. That's going to be awesome. So lock in with that build. Lightning Spear over here. This is getting a buff. That's cool. Is it enough to make it good? Well, remember, the aspect is what got that build killed. And then Overflowing Energy, which gives you some increased damage. So you get 85x now, and then it hits additional energy. I'm assuming that this is a buff because they want us to play Crackling Energy. So I don't run the original stat because no one played it for the most part. Then Primordial Binding gains like the summon tag, so that's cool. Spiritborn, so Crushing Hand. Oh, wow, that's awesome. It's getting a double buff. That's cool. Double damage on that. Dominant. Attempting to knock down an enemy increases your gorilla skills by 5x. And then they have a chance to execute non-bosses. That got removed over there. Okay. And then Noxious Resonance. So your critical strikes cause your poison on an enemy to burst, dealing 300% total poison to them and 10% of the burst for surrounding enemies before removing the effect from the primary target. Okay, so this is a buff and a nerf. So if you group up enemies, I guess that's less, but on the base of it, it got increased. But there's a nerf on the double dipping with the Jaguar. So we'll see how that build does. And then we have Quill Volley over here, hurling some feathers. They nerfed this, but again, everyone's playing the Poison Thorns, so I'm assuming that this is a buff on like the more consistent end. Then we have Rake over here. Rake is gaining a buff. Okay, cool. A little bit of damage there. Resilient. For each base gorilla skill on your action bar, you gain extra life and knockdown duration and barrier generation. Okay, that's cool. And then Stinger is getting another buff. I'll be honest though, even when I played Stinger, it was never really good. Quill Volley has always been the top tier skill. With this nerf, I really feel like Crushing Hand is looking like to be a lot better because it's already pretty good and it's really good for survivability. So that's awesome. And then the Seeker over here swoops down. I mean, this doesn't really matter too much. You can increase this by a little bit, and it's still probably not going to see too much play. People really like specifically the Hunt, right? So I would say Crushing Hands might be something to consider if you want to do actual damage, but it looks like the Poison build will still be kind of good. Now, there is also skill modifiers over here. Some of these may actually change up on basically when you put the additional 2 extra points into it. So this one is getting an increase. So Shred's third combo attack is a bigger 300. So this already gets doubled. Remember, Shred already got double stats, and then now they're going to take 300% point damage. So you get like extra double dipping on this. So I would really lock in with the Shred Druid, at least try that one out on the PTR for Season 10 that just came out. So Corpse Explosion looks like it's getting increased damage to enemies that are slow. Oh, and this can stack. So multiple bonuses on the Necro here. Then with Supernatural Blight, your minions get 10x increased shadow damage to enemies within Blight. So that is going to be a nerf over there. Then Rogue with Barrage, there's Chain over here. I guess maybe it's a different like wording. I don't know. This just says Chain. Advanced Penetration Shot. When the cast is casted with full energy, Penshot slows all enemies hits by 50% for 3 seconds. Then additionally dealing 50x increased damage to elite enemies and knocking them down. Okay. Then we have Barrage Chain over here. Enhanced Twisting Blades deals 45 increased damage when returning. Okay, so you get again, there's some nerfs and buffs with the Twisting Blade. Forceful Arrow over here. It knocks back close enemies and then immobilizes them. And immobilized enemies take 50x increased damage for the duration. Ooh, I wonder if people are going to be able to try to use this with the bosses. Because 50x just increased damage, not just fundamental arrow, right? So maybe people will try out running the Forceful Arrow just for that multiplier. It's a short duration, but 50% is pretty big. Then improved Flurry got, I guess, the mobility tag over there. And then Primal... Forceful Arrow. Forceful Arrow pierces through enemies, and the first enemy hit has a 30% chance to execute, injure, not. This is so worthless. I don't know why the Diablo game has this thing where it executes like non-bosses. It's pretty worthless compared to like in action RPG terms, usually people call it like Culling Strike, right? It's in a Determined Path of Exile where it's like when the boss has like 10% or lower HP, you insta them, right? That's what we want. We want to execute on the bosses. The small stuff doesn't really matter as much. So hopefully giving them some feedback, they can make this for specifically bosses. And maybe it's not like... it's injured is what, like 20 or 30%. Maybe they can reduce the threshold, but make it so it's useful, because again, it's pretty useless on non-elites and stuff, right? Then with Sorcerer with Destructive Fireball, oh, we're getting a nerf here. So Fireball's crit damage got decreased by 10%, but it's and it got another nerf over here when it hits at least 3 enemies. Okay, the bottom line is that you already doubled the base stats. That's amazing. Fireball's already going to be pretty good. And then Enhanced Charge Bolts. The third time enemies hit by a single cast of Charge Bolts, that Bolt Surge upon impact deals 88% in the area. With Greater Fireball, it deals 10x increased damage to burning enemies. When a non-boss enemy takes this damage while below 20% life, again, this is like wordless. Mage's Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning deals 30x increased damage to stunned enemies and bosses. Okay, that's cool. And then, but didn't they nerf Ball Lightning? It's kind of weird that they nerfed it. It was only good when it was bugged, though. Okay, Spiritborn, the Protector's area lasts 6 more seconds, and any slows enemies and small missiles by 80%. While it's nearby, you're unstoppable and get 30x damage. Okay, cool. That's actually not too bad. Maybe we can actually run this now instead of like the Jaguar one. The Protector strikes deal 350% increased damage, and all enemies within its area deal 30% reduced damage. So that's going to be pretty good for bosses. Now, some of these aspects I did kind of go over. I'm going to go over these real fast because I did kind of cover them, but I'm just going to try to make this all in one video so you guys have it here. So Hoda is getting basically a double buff, and then this is also doubled. So it gives you kind of like quad damage because you get this on a two-hander, and then it gets doubled, and then it's doubled again against the bosses, so that's pretty cool. Then we have the Battle Mount aspect, so it's getting basically increased by 20%. One-time Rupture. This doubles your Rupture skew radius in all bleed duration. So even if you don't want to play like a one-time Rupture and use it, just all bleed is increased by 60x is pretty dang good. Aspect of the Wild Rage, casting a companion skill gives 20 to 40% chance to activate a equipped companion skill and reduce its cooldown. So this is going to be for like the Ravens build. With the balance aspect, our spirit is increased by 50, and casting a cooldown increases the generation by 25 for 8 seconds. That's actually pretty big. And then the Storm Chaser's aspect drags non-elite enemies with it and deals increased damage and damage for each enemy or object inside of it. With Stormclaw's aspect, critical strikes with Shred deals, this is a nerf. It used to be 80 and now it's 60% of the damage dealt as lightning. With the Necromancer, Fell Gluttony, this is... oh gosh, I don't know what the original number is, because dealing X0 increased damage doesn't really help. So I'm not sure what the changes with this. It's probably the numbers, but it doesn't show up correctly here. Anyways, Great Feast. So the Great Feast is getting a buff by 5%. Cool. But there is a pretty big downside where it's doubling the essence that it does drain for you. So it's a give and a take with that. Bloodseeker's aspect, you get basically the damage cut in half over there, with that going from 30 to 15, and then your Bloodlance deals, instead of 45, 35x crit damage. And then the Cadaverous aspect, consuming a corpse increases your damage for 7% up to 35%. So that is going to be, it just says increases. Oh, so it used to only be core and ultimate, so now it's everything. So if you have extra room, throw it on. It's just like a good multiplier. Then we have the Reaping Lotus aspect, so Sever is going to no longer return, and it just deals another 40x damage. With the Rogue, this is what I was talking about, where there was a give and a take, right? So you can deal, instead of 80x at the higher end, 120, but remember, you're going to put this into two-hander, so it's 240, so it's a pretty big buff. Aspect of Charged Flash, so while you have Crackling Energy, Charge Bolts spend to cast a wave that deals a certain amount of damage, so it's 140x now. What was the other one? Oh, it used to require you to hit 50 times or something. Okay, so this is a buff, I'm assuming, because they want us to use Crackling Energy in this season. The third time an enemy is hit by a single cast of Charged Bolts, it spawns additional 3 to 5 Charged Bolts. Okay, so maybe on the bosses, you can just keep on making this thing ramp up. And then the Serpentine aspect took a massive nerf. It's basically cut in like 1/3. So it's a pretty big damage reduction, but you could only, only up to 500 mana. There is a cap on it. Oh, that is really unfortunate. I think that this was updated since the last time we saw it, right? I did not see a cap on it before, so Serpentine Aspect took another nerf. That's very unlucky, because let's see, it goes up to 5. But the only unfortunate part is it still drains all your mana, so even if you have a bunch, yeah, dang, that's a big nerf over there. You're going to put on a 200, so it's just like 500. 500x damage is still pretty good, all right, to be fair. And you can go crazy in the mana department, but that is kind of a disappointment. I don't really like it when games cap you on certain things. Anyways, the Spiritborn, the Bristling Vengeance, payback echoes forward and deals up to 150% of the damage instead of 130 so. And then the final echo is larger and deals double the thorns damage. Okay, so maybe you can lock in with this with the Poison Thorn variant. I don't know if that's going to be a thing people try. Wild Claws, so Rake is going to have a Spirit Jaguar cost an enemy, and they increased it from 85 to 120. Rebounding on the Quill Volley is getting an increase. So they reduced some damage on the Quill Volley, but then increase it. I don't know why they do this. They reduce one, they buff the other one. Just change one. That doesn't really make sense. Anyways, aspect of adaptability. This is actually a pretty big one for any basic skill enjoyers. So basic skills deal up to 0.6, but you're going to put an amulet, so it's basically, what is that, 0.9, so almost 1x increased damage for every primary resource that you have, up to 500 resource, so that is a pretty big multiplier over there, so this is big. And then Starlight aspect, which maybe you can run with something that spends all your resources, so you gain primary resource up to 45 for every 20% of your life that you heal, or 120% of the life that you overheal, while at maximum up to 300 resources per second. All right, so those are the class balances updates. Let me know, guys, what class you actually plan to play. I was going to lock in with Sorc, and I'm probably still going to start off with Sorc just because I want to try out that huge buff to Fireball now. And originally, I was like, okay, I'm locking in Hydra. Hydra is going to be the #1 because the Serpentine aspect is crazy still OP, but now that there's a cap of 500x, that's kind of disappointing. But in terms of scaling, it's really hard to beat a 500x on top of getting like plus 12 Hydra heads, and yeah, it's still probably going to be one of the top tier builds. Anyways, let me know what you guys plan to play in Season 10. And if you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell, because we're going to be dropping build guides very soon for the Season 10 PTR, so you guys can kind of have fun with the PTR. Anyways, let me know what class you're playing. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.